All right, today we're diving into a pretty powerful and, let's be honest, controversial argument. It comes from Mosab Hassan Yousef, who is the son of a Hamas founder, and commentator Douglas Murray. Together, they're sounding a major alarm, claiming the West is completely ignoring a dangerous ideological threat that's growing from within. So let's get into it and break down exactly what they're arguing.
So, right off the bat, Youssef hits us with this really striking claim. This one sentence basically sets the stage for everything we're about to unpack. It all comes down to one central accusation: hypocrisy. The big question is, who exactly is he calling a hypocrite? And why? And that leads us straight to the first major theme. The core of the argument here is that Western leaders aren't just in the dark, they're accused of willfully ignoring a threat they already know about. And that inaction, according to the source, is a massive form of hypocrisy. The source material uses this really powerful metaphor, right? That the West is just asleep. Youssef's point is that leaders in places like the US, the UK, and France just aren't getting the reality of a threat that he says he saw up close his whole life. Okay, so this is a really key part of the whole argument. The source claims that the big intelligence agencies, the CIA, the FBI, Homeland Security, they know exactly what ideology is driving terrorism. But, and this is the crucial part, the claim is that they're held back from doing anything meaningful because of political fears. And this is where it gets really crucial, according to the source. The point they're making is that this silence, it isn't neutral. It's actually framed as a form of submission, a surrender to intimidation. So it's not just a failure to act, it's a choice that they argue actually emboldens the threat itself. Okay, so if the big accusation is that the West is ignoring a threat, what is that threat exactly? The source material gets very specific here, and it tries to define the ideology that it sees as the real root of the problem. Well, the source points a finger directly at the Muslim Brotherhood. It's described as an organization whose alleged goal is nothing less than the destruction of the Western world. And the method? Spreading what they call an anti-civilization, 7th century mentality. It's also pointed out that several Arab nations like Egypt and Saudi Arabia have actually banned the group because they see it as a danger.
So if you break it down, these are the core ideas of the ideology, at least as the source describes them. It's presented as being not just against the West, but against the very concepts of civilization and success. And what does it favor instead? Chaos.
And this quote, man, it just perfectly captures this central claim. The argument is that the end goal isn't to build some kind of alternative society. It's to create chaos. Because as Yousef puts it, chaos is the only environment where an ideology like this can actually survive and grow. Okay, so that's the ideology. But how does it actually spread within the very societies it's supposedly against? Well, that brings us to our next section, this idea that Western values are being flipped around and used against themselves. This is where commentator Douglas Murray introduces what he sees as the central paradox of the whole situation. The argument is that a core Western value, especially freedom of speech, is being twisted and used as a weapon to eventually get rid of that very freedom. And the source lays out what it sees as a kind of playbook, a step-by-step method. Step 1, set up hubs in major Western cities. Step 2, use social media to preach the ideology. Then, the really critical third step, use freedom of speech as a shield. From there, it's argued, you generate anger and ultimately attack the society from the inside.
All right, so you've got the ideology, you've got the method, but what's the spark? What's the trigger that sets it all off? Well, according to the source, it's what they call an angry cause.
And for Yousef, a conflict like the Israeli-Palestinian one isn't the root of the problem. Instead, he argues it's used as a tool, a powerful, ready-made, angry cause to stir up outrage and mobilize people against the West. And to back this up, Yousef draws this really stark contrast, a kind of timeline. He claims that after 9/11, Muslims went into hiding. But after October 7th, he says demonstrations started the next day, and with open aggression. In his view, this is proof that there was already a network in place, just waiting to be activated. And the argument goes even further. It claims that this angry cause acts like a kind of glue, uniting groups that you wouldn't normally see together. The source alleges that Islamists, communists, and socialists all rally around a shared opposition, not just to Israel, but to the basic principles of Western civilization itself. So all of this, the hypocrisy, the chaos ideology, the way freedom is supposedly being used. It all builds to one final, really provocative warning.
And that leads us to the final, chilling question that Yousef puts on the table. It's a direct challenge, really, aimed at Western leaders and the public, asking them to wake up to the threat he's describing before. In his view, it's too late.
So let's just pull it all together for a second. The core argument we've just walked through really weaves all these points together. It paints a picture of a civilization that is, in their view, willingly blinding itself to an enemy within, starting with hypocrisy and ending with the idea that doing nothing is a form of surrender. And that really leaves us with the central question the source wants you to think about. It's a tough one, and it gets right to the heart of the huge challenges that democracies are facing right now. How do you protect an open society when its very openness can potentially be used against it?